My phone says 1928. And we're broadcasting, so I'm not starting early. How lovely to see. Yes, let's start. How very, very lovely to see you all. I'm looking for my note. There's my note. Otherwise, I just have to make it up as I go along. When I was a boy, my father, all the time, took his Kodak camera and took 35mm slide. And then the excruciating experience would be to have a family slideshow when we got home. And he so loved putting all the slides into the cassette. And when I was very young, he had a little device he had manually to slide them in and out to change. And technology whizzed forward so that there came a point where he could press a button and it would change the slide on its own. Until at some point it caught. He'd spend the afternoon preparing and dim the lights and close the curtains, and it was excruciating. And what would be even worse would be if my parents would say to the neighbours, "Do you want to come round and see the slides from our holidays?" So I'm not going to give any kind of commentary on the pictures from my holidays. They're there, they're just going to keep on rolling as I talk, so that if you find me excruciatingly dull, then you can at least look at the pictures. And if later on you want to ask questions, I really do hope that tonight is not just me spouting, but please feel free to stop me, ask a question, and so on, and so on. Anthony?
Please freeze frame on the map of your cycling.
At some point we might freeze frame on the map of my cycling route, but maybe when I get to talking about it. But it's running automatically and no one's in charge of it, so you're asking quite a difficult task. One of the things that the senior staff do for us minnows is to review our performance every 3 years. Performance management, setting targets and goals. So you have a 365-degree review meeting where I have to choose a number of people to answer questions about me. So quite a few of you over the years may have done that, for which I thank you. I have to find people who are not particularly related to our churches, but who know something about me, and I thank them as well. And then you go and have what has always, for me, been a nice conversation with a bishop or an archdeacon or something like that. And at the end of it, they set objectives for the next 3 years. And then you put it to bed and carry on as normal. Is that what it's like in the ordinary world? Yeah. So I've had these from time to time, and quite often one of the objectives, the task is, Mike, take a sabbatical. So the reason I take a sabbatical is that it's encouraged by the diocese, and they believe it's good for my own personal development. I've only ever taken one before. I took it in 2006, and the day before it started, it had just started, the bishop rang me up. He said, "Do you remember Bishop Bob?"
Yes.
Oh. He said, "Mike, I'd love you to look at a new job." So I came home from my sabbatical, I'd been at home most of the time, having also done a job interview with the news to my parish that I was moving on. That was from Tiverton to Pinhole. Nothing of that sort has happened this autumn, and there is no likelihood of me moving on. So I'd just like you to clear that one off the decks before we get any further. And so we put sabbatical in the diary, and slowly worked towards the window which we'd chosen, which was that after we got through the Alphington Festival in June, I could give myself 3 months. So I want to thank the senior staff. I want to thank you folks, because in the various churches you have really done amazingly. And thank you for giving me permission. I think the bishops probably put a gun to your head and said you will let him have a sabbatical and you will keep the show going. But thank you very much. I'm delighted by your gracious generosity in letting me go. And so you have to work out, what is it all about? I said the other day in one of my services that I discovered at some point that sabbatical was spelled with 2 B's. I thought it was spelled with 1, because it's sabbatical. But it's spelled with 2 B's because it comes from the word Sabbath. And that's instantly significant, because on the 7th day, God rested from the work of creation. And it's not that he put his tools down and said, oh, that was hard work, I want to take a rest and think about something else. But that I think it was part of the sort of the creative activity of God, that rhythm and activity and inactivity merged together. And it's the same for us as people, that we need stages in our week, month, year, life, some that are fast and full of energy, and some not in which you just shut down, but in which you choose a different pace. And that's what this was about. The diocese, there are some situations where an employer will say, will expect you to produce a great work of academic significance. The diocese isn't like that. So I went and had a chat with, I'm trying to remember the title he has. I think he's the ministry, director of ministry. And we came up with several things. The first was that as you all know, Rachel, my wife, died in 2016, which is now 8 and a bit years ago. In the 4 years in which she was ill, I produced a blog to report to the churches what the latest twist and turn of this bizarre journey was. And that's really how it started. She died. I will return to this in greater depth. And as you do, you move on. And I think to an extent I have moved on and left that behind, and there's no harm in that, but this was a great opportunity to return and think about this most significant part of my life. So that was part 1, and to do it, it would be to read the blog and take it from there. Part 2 is that in my illusions of grandeur, I fancy myself as a writer and a poet. And I thought maybe there would be some time to indulge in that. So I did do a very short creative writing course, and I'll inflict some of it on you. And I do have more ambitions to produce something, and if I can't get it published, then maybe 1 or 2 of you will read it anyway. So that was part 2, a creative writing course. And then part 3, lockdown has everything to blame for my obsession with cycling. Actually, when I was at junior school, aged 10 or 11, Mr. Reed, my class teacher, this would be 1971, 72, who used to smoke in the classroom. Isn't that shocking? You had one that drank, yeah. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? He was in charge of sport for the primary school, and he did not lead by example, but whether it's cross country, football, whatever, he was the man. He was really, really good. And in the year that I was in that primary school, I did a heck of a lot of junior cycling. So many years ago, there is a sort of a little. I did some quite successful junior cycling as well in races and so on. So the third part of my plan was to do something amazing on a bike, and what I really wanted to do was Land's End to John O'Groats. And I didn't want to do it on my own. There's a whole load of places where you can sign up to a group. You cycle together. They'll transport your luggage from one stop to the next, and it's fabulous. And I was deeply frustrated that in my 3-month window, it just did not fit with any of the many organisations who were doing that. So I broadened my thinking and thought, okay, what else could I do? You can go just about anywhere in Europe and join a group. There were some beautiful group rides in Tuscany and in the Alps and in just about every country you could think of, and that's a shocking fact. And the sad thing is that I put the sideshow together. I didn't take that. That's the one you want, isn't it, Anthony?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Right, back to cycling. Nothing fitted at all. And so at some point, this project fell into my lap. The Camino is an ancient footpath. There have been TV programs about minor celebrities walking the Camino. It ends in Santiago, which is northwest Spain, the top left-hand corner. But it can start almost anywhere. Traditionally, it starts just over the Pyrenees at a French town called Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. But as long as you end in Santiago, you can start anywhere. And I was absolutely fascinated that as we travelled home in our coach from Auschwitz to Krakow, at one point I looked out of the window of the coach, bleary-eyed, and there was one of those obelisks that you probably have seen here that indicate you're on the Camino and it's that direction and so many kilometres to Santiago. There's a route from Utrecht. There's route. So I mean, the big main route is the one I've just described. But in a sense, if you get to Santiago, you've done the Camino. Camino, by the way, you Spanish speakers know, it means way. So if you're walking through a Spanish town, and look at the street names, there's quite a lot of Caminos around, just as there are way to streets in our country. Yeah, it was lovely in Poland, near Krakow, to look out of the window and see one of those stone objects. And so that fell into place. The idea that you could cycle it. There are a huge number of businesses and firms that will organise it for you. The normal way for a pilgrim to do the Camino is to walk, and along the route there are a lot of hostels offering you bed if you get there early at 10 or 15 euros a night, really cheap. Anyway, I found a lovely firm who would book me a small hotel. They would carry my luggage from one hotel to the next. And in my hotel I had a nice double bed, a shower, and breakfast. So I was not slumming it like a traditional pilgrim. I'm too old for that sort of thing. Having said that, as I left a town called Porto Marin, I played leapfrog with another cyclist, and I knew he was Italian because he had an Italian flag on the back. And when eventually we stopped, I discovered he was about 80 something. I asked him where he'd started, and he said Milan. So he'd done a couple of thousand kilometres. The Camino itself has been around for centuries, and probably in the 19th and 20th century it was disappearing until in the second half of the 20th century, in this village, the local priest set about resurrecting the pilgrimage that had been there for such a long time. And that village, O Chibrero, is about as high as Ben Nevis. And he managed with a massive project which brought the enthusiasm of people in North Spain to resurrect the pilgrimage. And it genuinely is the case now that 500,000 people or more get to Santiago de Compostela and get their passport stamps. So that is you just saw it, the thing, the same as the thing I saw in Krakow. The nearer you get to Santiago, there's a picture, the more people there are. So you see there was a white van and a coach and a lot of people on the footpath. Technically, if you've walked 100 kilometres, you can go to the cathedral at Santiago and they will accredit your passport. It's not called passport, I've forgotten what it's called. So from 100 kilometres in, there's hordes of people. And the white vans are carrying people's luggage and even their taxis as well, saying, "Are you tired? We can give you a lift." So in a strange way, it has been a really huge injection to the economy of northern Spain, which is really good. And there's a strange mixture between people who go there with a spiritual, as part of a journey, an inner journey that they're doing, and people who love walking or even love cycling. So, what else can I say? Other things that as the pictures go around, you'll see that we had a family holiday in Benidorm. At the end of end of September, Peter, my friend Pete, got married in a little place called Rocky Mountain House, which is a very long way away. Dear Pete has had the same journey as me. We've known each other since around 2000 when I joined St George's Church, and he and his wife and family became huge friends. His wife died from breast cancer a few years ago, and he also lost a daughter. So, he's had a really tough time. He had to look on the other side of the world to find someone willing to take him on. And then he invited all of us in Exeter and Tiverton, and we all said no, until my wife Lucy said, "Mike, you can go." And so on a Friday I got on the plane at Bristol Airport, or was it a Thursday? Anyway, I was back by Tuesday, and I'd had a day at his wedding and then a day driving through the Rocky Mountains, and it was just amazing. That picture, by the way, is a bear bridge. You know how we have bat bridges? That's a bridge to allow large animals to cross the road. And it's like going through a tunnel. So, let's keep going. Please, as you did, Anthony, please feel free to stop me and ask a question at any point. Renting a bike.
Renting a bike to go, is there a special place?
Yeah.
You want one that's going to be comfortable, roadworthy, that you're going to love and get to know?
Yeah. Santiago Ways was the firm. You know, you search the internet, and they said, we'll rent you a bike, we'll book your hotels, we'll arrange for your luggage to move from one hotel to the next, we'll do everything. So I flew to Madrid, I caught a high-speed train from Madrid to Leon, wonderful train, oh, amazing. Turned up at my hotel, and there in the foyer was a mountain bike. I couldn't really believe it, but it worked. And then when I got to Santiago, it said, take it to the post office. I thought, I'm going to have trouble posting this. And there in the post office were two other bikes being handed in as well. So I just signed the document, handed it over. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And it was, it had pretty serious gearing and suspension. That's Rachel. I don't know. I just put that in. I thought, you need to see her.
How many miles do you cycle per day?
I did about, per day, it was probably 30 to 40 kilometres, so less than 30 miles.
Did you get a little bit sore?
Yeah. I got quite weary. Yeah. I am quite used to cycling 40 miles on a lovely, smooth, flat road. Sorry?
Not in England.
Well, yeah, if you go down the estuary, you get something, but yeah, not flat. At sort of 18 miles an hour. And then when I look at you, my telephone was tracking me and telling me how much I'd climbed and so on. I think I averaged about 7.5, possibly miles an hour, maybe even kilometres an hour. It was very slow. But I think part of the business of Sabbath rest is to slow down. And even when there was an option to take the road, if I could take the footpath, I did. And I did so without compromising walkers and that sort of thing. In the end, I did 300 kilometres. So the walkers must do 100, cyclists must do 200 to get your accreditation. And as you go through cafes and hotels and hostels, they'll stamp your little passport, and that proves that you've done it.
Is Leon sort of if you're looking at that map, is it there, over there?
Leon's the right hand of the places, yes. And so then you're going west towards Santiago, which is still 30 or 40 miles from the coast. We'll at some point, if I don't go on for too long, we'll talk. Charlie, he's lovely. Ah, he really knew how to kiss on order. Right, we'll have a break now. On the creative writing course, which is still, the creative writing is still very much embryonic. One of our bits of homework was to write a 500-word short story. So I'm going to inflict this on you. And is it Sue or Di who's reading? Sue. Before you read, Sue, it's cryptic. If you do follow the ins and outs of it and work out what's happened at the end, you get a gold star, and I'll send you to the headmistress and she'll give you a piece of cake. I'm not entirely pleased with it, so listen carefully, and thank you, Sue, for reading it to us.
Do my best.
Yeah. That should work. I'll talk about that later.
John and Katie looked at each other. The taxi pulled away into the darkness. Relief was written on their faces. If that had been a theme park ride, said Katie, I'd have pressed my golden buzzer. They stumbled into the hotel lobby, images of streetlights still flashing past. Their driver had clearly been on a mission. The plane had landed late. Maybe his wife had given him a curfew and the deadline was getting close. Maybe his boss was on his case for more take-ins. So the car had woven in and out of the Athens traffic with little regard for others. The speed limit signs had no meaning to the driver. When they had to stop at a red light, he used the time to photograph his passengers. Travel voucher. One hand held the phone, one hand held the voucher. His knees guided the steering wheel as the lights turned green and he pulled away, still taking the photo. What made me laugh, said Katie, was the girls on the motorbike, neither with a helmet. Every time we stopped, they caught us up and went ahead. It was early morning. They had arrived. John and Katie quickly fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. The Areopagus lies at the foot of the Acropolis. From a distance, it looks like a small, severe hill, covered in scrubs, thirsty for water and welcoming no one. Katie read aloud from her guidebook. This is the seat of ancient justice. People charged with crimes like murder or arson would be put on trial here. Athens is the birthplace of democracy, is the birthplace of justice too. John wasn't convinced. Call me a cynic, but I rather think that justice came at a price. It was easier to get it if you were able to pay than if you were poor. The same then as it is now, Katie smiled wearily. Do you think we'll ever get justice? Or will we have to live like this forever? It was actually quite crowded. First impressions had been wrong. A large coach inched its way up the wide road, cobbled with polished marble. Pedestrians reluctantly moved aside. An American family was swallowed into the air-conditioned luxury of a black Mercedes van. Motorbikes josted with the pedestrians. A herd of helmeted sedgeways took ownership, just for a moment, up the entire road. Who knows, said John. At least let's enjoy the moment. We can't live in the shadows forever. Two girls on a motorcycle approached. Its engine raced. The slope felt steeply to the left, and no one really saw what was happened. But the bike fell and tumbled and rolled, bouncing like a toy. The two bodies bounced less. They just crumbled like dolls. When the police examined the bodies, one male, one female, no one stepped forward or remarked on the black taxi, or the two females who climbed in and drove away. Once again, justice had lost the fight. Power took the prize, and no one would ever know.
Thank you. Beautifully read. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope there's a dark aura of mystery in what you heard. Right, where should we go from here? So actually, one of the other things that I did was Felicity and I had 3 days in Athens. She'd been due to go on a school trip, and COVID had thrown that one out the window. So that was Dad's little treat to his daughter, and much of what you heard there was absolutely true. We really did get driven from the airport late at night to our hotel by a maniac. Terrifying. So, in my review of Rachel's illness, it has actually now produced 5 small volumes. So it's the equivalent of a book. And if any of you want to take one and read it, I'd be very happy for you to do so. I want to read you the introduction. The message on the answer phone stopped us in our tracks. It was brief, blunt, and alarming. During July and August 2012, it was increasingly clear that something was wrong. We went to New Wine, a large Christian festival in Somerset. Living in a caravan is never straightforward. It's even worse when one of you is constantly tired. We were both determined to carry on, to get over it just as soon as we had a clue what the problem was. We explored diet, food intolerance, and menopause as possible causes. After New Wine, it was a family holiday in the caravan in Cornwall. Rachel's struggles. I should have pre-read this. Yeah. Rachel kept on the struggle for far too long. When character was being allocated at the counter of life, Rachel took home sacks full with grit, determination, and bloody-mindedness as extras. With hindsight, we should have called for help earlier. As it was, we did pack up and come home early. Rachel went straight down to the surgery. The family doctor mumbled words like anemia, took some blood, and sent it off to the lab. That evening, in place of holidaying in Cornwall, we were in a friend's field, barbecuing meat and enjoying company. In fact, we were with Jeremy. Yeah. Little did we know that the labs at the hospital had seen Rachel's blood and pressed the alarm button. We got home to find messages on the answer phone and notes through the door. In those days, we did have a mobile phone, but we hardly ever used it and rarely shared our number. The upshot was, you need to be in hospital now, and life changed forever. In the emergency admissions ward, Rachel was given a private side room. Blood transfusion was set up and we waited, still completely ignorant of what was going on, other than the fact that it was clearly serious. In reality, of course, the medics didn't yet know what they were dealing with. One young doctor cautiously shared the word leukemia with us. The night was a difficult one and Rachel didn't respond well to the extra blood. Mornings can be the coldest and most vulnerable of times. That's how we felt as Rachel was moved to the specialist haematology ward called Yardley in Exeter's Hospital, where all the wards are named after local rivers. I know there are people in this church who have had regular dealings with Yardley. It's an amazing place. We were at the start of a steep learning curve, a journey of unknown length to a destination out of sight. Our guides and companions themselves didn't know much. It would take more tests to find out exactly what sort of leukemia it was, but they did know that right now her state was life-threatening and demanded immediate action. Very soon we too learned just what a big family of related diseases leukemia is. Rachel's own particular brand brought her as an adult into a family which is for the most part made of children. Treating children is hard enough. The few adults who develop acute lymphoblastic leukemia present the specialists with even greater challenges. It's a cancer of the blood and many people never recover. Amid the rush of looking after children, informing friends and family, I started a diary which soon became a blog. We had a long, intense journey ahead of us, and the blog seemed the best way of letting people know what was going on. It quickly became more than a diary. It became a place of soul-searching and personal reflection. Hundreds of people would visit it every day, looking out for the next update and thanking me for profound words I'd written. I thought it was just a way of expressing myself and sharing the story. To many of you, it became much more. I thank the many unknown companions who journeyed with us, whose invisible presence was like a cheering crowd as we ran the race. At this point, we didn't know whether it was a marathon or a sprint, whether it would end in glory or tears. We'd simply to take each day as it came. When I eventually reread the blog in 2024, I found something which surprised me. One of the very last entries included words from Rachel. In it, she asked me to turn the blog into print and make it available for our children. And there was also a promise from me, which soon fell by the wayside, that I would continue the blog. The original words can now no longer be found on the internet, and I'll explain that. But they are preserved here for all to see. With scant regard to copyright, I peppered the blog with cartoons and pictures. For the most part, I've included them here. But for some reason unknown, when I downloaded the entries for 2013, only one picture got saved. You'll have to decide whether you prefer what's been written with or without illustrations. The story begins about a week after the first hospital admission and diagnosis. Has anyone had experience of someone with acute lymphoblastic leukemia? I know there are people who are fairly familiar with other forms of leukemia. Okay. Oh, yes?
My daughter-in-law's sister's baby passed away.
Yeah?
The baby, and she died at 18 months.
Oh, how sad. Yeah. Yeah. It is the classic childhood leukemia, and I'm pretty sure that when Ian Botham was raising money to combat research into leukemia, that's what he was working on, and the success. I mean, I'm 10 years past these. The work has probably proceeded and developed hugely since all my experience 10 years ago. But they were doing fairly well with children's leukemia, but not so well with adult leukemia. So he was definitely to do with bone marrow transplants. I don't know if he had that particular brand. It's quite likely if he was, as he was a boy. Yeah. There's a huge number of them, and the chronic rather than the acute ones, people can live with monitoring and various treatments in a much more acceptable way. But I'm afraid acute hits you like an express train, and so the journey lasted 4 years. She had 2 bone marrow transplants, which is quite remarkable. She had some. The development of drugs to fight cancers, as you know, is producing new drugs all the time. And so she had some of those cutting-edge drugs which really did amazing things. When she came to having her second transplant, she had one of these, I'm even forgetting what they're called now, which put her in a state to receive, it put her into remission so much quicker than first time round. It was quite remarkable. It ended with her death in 2016, and you can read it all if you want to borrow that. I'll probably refer to it more later. Yeah. A sort of, how are we doing? Yeah. Can you endure a bit more? Yeah. So the voices which said to me, Mike, rewrite this, present it, don't let go of the creative muse. led me to explore a little bit more about writing, and in particular, I only discovered what I'm going to tell you after Sabbatical was over. And I was going to tell you why I pulled the blog down from the internet, which is really a scary story. It was in this building, I would guess around 2019, a man joined our Sunday worship, spoke to me afterwards. He described himself as a musician. He told me the projects he had going. He knew that my children were musical, and so on and so on. You know, if they were around, it'd be nice to have them partner up in what he was doing. And it was one of my daughters who just found that a little bit too suspicious, and searched him up online and found he was a convicted abuser of children. And the only way he could have known so much about me and my family was through reading that up there. And so, it is a reminder to us in the context of the Archbishop's resignation and the abuse that lay behind that. We must be gracious to one another, but just think, without letting it damage our attitude to other people. Be aware that some people have motives which are far from good. So that's why it came down, and it existed on my computer for 5 or 6 years until I brought it out into the light of day. And it's a diary. I went at the start of this month. The clergy and ministers of Exeter, so Church of England, Free Church, blah blah, quite a lot of variety. We had an overnight stay at Buckfast Lee, and not Buckfast Lee, Buckfast Abbey. And the guest speaker was a man called Sheridan Voisey. Have you heard him on Radio 2? He does Pause for Thought. He's an Australian, a bit younger than me, and really lovely man. In his earlier life, he had hosted in Australia a national radio show which brought together people of faith and people who would want to challenge it or ask difficult questions about it. So it wasn't a sort of the kind of radio show that simply fed the faithful, but it was a really interesting interface between faith and society, but very much from his point of view as a man of deep faith. So at the moment, he lives in this country and has done for 10, 15 years. And he's producing a course called Friendship Lab. And so he talked about this to us. And in particular, things that struck me were, who would you call at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're at the end of your tether? That was the question he and his wife were asked when they were on a pre-adoption course. They were looking to adopt a child. It's a good question, isn't it? It's about friendship. Who are the people you know you could call at an ungodly hour? And then he took us through the stories of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus in the Bible, and said, I think these were the true friends of Jesus, because they were the people who were able to say hard things to him, like, if you'd been here, it would have been different. To quite an extent, his disciples were his fans, but not his friends. Do you follow? And he had a whole lot of other stuff about that. And he talks about the Lazarus, the one who dies. These are the only people of whom the Bible says Jesus loved them. And the word there is not the nice Christian religious word agape. It's philos, which is friendship, human love. Agape is a great thing, but so is friendship, human love. So when Jesus was called, they say the one you love is sick. And so he's sort of arising from that, and also, research into what people have as friendship. He's producing a course, and we got to the point where he described how Jesus spoke to Mary and Martha while Lazarus was dead, and then raised him from the dead. One of the things he said was, a friend is someone I can grow with. He helps me to become a bigger person. And I had a real problem. I think I still do have a real problem with Jesus and Lazarus. And I put my hand up and said, I've got this problem. I really wish Jesus hadn't raised Lazarus from the dead. I really wish, because it feels like he's put his cape on and his Superman kit on, and it's all right. And Sheridan was so perceptive. He said, that question comes out of the experience of deep grief. Isn't that profound? Anyway, I bought 3 of his books. You go to these conference things and you come home with trophies. Do you ever read them? Yeah. This one's called Resurrection Year. And it describes how for 10 years he and his wife wanted to have a child. And how they went through IVF, adoption. They tried everything. And when I read that, I realised that when he said those words, he knew what he was talking about. Maybe deep disappointment, shall we say. And he'd had to handle the people who had come up to him and said, we're praying for you, and I've got a word from you from God. And the people who would give false hope. And so when he said that to me, I was touched, and then when I read his book, I realised that he knew what he was talking about. And this comes round to writing, because that's a memoir, mine is a diary, and he has writing about the journey from getting married to wanting children, to the despair of not having children, and being the husband of the wife who's not getting pregnant, and all that stuff, which is really painful. So I've engaged with him on an emotional level, but I think I've also discovered, I've looked at his style of writing, which is going to help me rewrite mine, because it's not a sequential. It takes it does take you from 2000 to 2010, but it also helps highlight some of the key themes. So if anyone wants to borrow and read that, you can. I've read it, it's good. And I've got a couple of others of his, which I'm halfway through. Unseen Footprints. I've not begun The Making of Us. Who we can become when life doesn't go as planned. So if you want to borrow any of those. He also recommended to me an author who I've been desperate to read for decades, and whom I quoted in my sermon on Sunday. Brennan Manning. And that book is called Ragamuffin Gospel. He recommended him because he's done some good writing on how to write as well. So I bought myself 4 of those, and I've only got halfway through one of them so far. But it'll keep me out of mischief. And if anyone wants to borrow any of those, you can. Oh, we're coming to the end. I think I just need to tell you a little bit more about the Camino. So a lovely person gave me a book, so if you want to read about the Camino, you can. You may have read in other things I've written the sort of the legends that the St. James, who was murdered by Herod, his body was miraculously floated in a stone coffin across the Mediterranean. I take this with a huge pinch of salt. Eventually it found its way to North Spain and was buried in a field, and many hundreds of years later someone discovered it. So Compostela means field of stars. Oh, I never knew that. Santiago, Iago is James. So St. James in the field of stars. They found it, allegedly they found his body, and out of this strange cult arose of a pilgrimage to where his body was then buried in the city, which has that remarkable cathedral. And you step inside the cathedral and it's quite obscene. The gold and the it's horrible. But it does say to me actually that we look at our cathedrals, which were, when were they built? 1400s? These were built much earlier. You cycle through Spain, and the cathedrals, the building, the churches and everything are much older. We were probably, our ancestors, those of us who are Anglo-Saxon English, were probably running around in loincloths and animal skins, and they were being civilized in their cathedrals. And this journey of pilgrimage arose 1,000 years ago. And what I loved, and that's the place where in the 20th century it was brought back to life. I think I loved the fact that there were times when you could be walking or cycling along a path which was so deeply dug into usually the sandstone, that a bit like some of Devon's paths, and there we are, you've got one there. You had this sense that you were walking in the footsteps of many, many people. There is one point, and there was a photo, where there is an iron cross at a high point, and you're meant, if you're carrying a burden, you're meant to go to the iron cross, take a stone and throw it over your shoulder, and as a sort of symbolic release of whatever it is that you're carrying. And that's part of human life, isn't it? The burdens that we carry, that we need to let go of and give to God. And somewhere on there's a photo of the man kneeling at the cross, which is exactly what was going on. And so this business of being a pilgrim, and I think it connects with the life journey that I've described to you. That's the horrible Gordian Cathedral. Shocking. And then I come back into ordinary life here, and you cannot simply go back to that slow pace that you had. But I think it's really, really important for all of us that we are so consumed by the world we live in, which is fast-moving and obsessed with doing things and owning things, when actually we can, if we divest ourselves of some of that, we have more opportunity to encounter the rhythms of grace with which God reaches out to us. And that's I mentioned Pete getting married, so that's that. Do you want to see the map, Anthony? Can I go to the back and stop it on the map, and then time for conversation, because I'm almost done. Oh, it's still moving. I thought I'd stopped it. That's the map. I did a commentary on the cycle ride, so every afternoon about 3 or 4 o'clock when I got into my hotel, my lovely clean sheets, had a shower, and I thought of all the other pilgrims squabbling for a bunk. Quite a lot of you read it on Facebook, but if you didn't, or if you'd like to read it again, it's quite hard to find on Facebook, so you can pick up one of these, which will help you find it. Or even better, and probably more easy if you're on a computer, you can ask me to send you one, and then you can just click on all those and it'll show you the sort of 10 pages or so. Hanneke. The question was, did it give me what I hoped for? Well, if I knew what I hoped for, I could give you an answer. But I think what it did give was an opportunity to get off that hamster wheel that I was on, and to give myself an incentive in the years that lie ahead of me, to make sure that I am never obsessed with just dealing with all the stuff, but actually I have a bigger handle on who I am and what I do and my relationship with God. Good question, and I hope the answer's okay. Sue. So, yeah. The question was, because I'm on the hamster wheel most of the time and busy, how did I deal with being completely on my own? And what that relates partly to, did I do this on my own, or did I do it with someone else? And Peter's here, who at one point nearly joined me, but I'm so glad you didn't. Please don't take it personally. apart from the fact that the one time I did go for a ride with you, you cycled up the hill to Pinhoe Church at such a rate I could not keep up with you at all. But the blessing on this of being on my own, much to my surprise, was that because I was on my own, I could have conversations and encounters with people that I don't think I would have had if you were with me, Peter.
But it seems to be quite tourist orientated now.
Yeah.
Sometimes you felt vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
In maybe you were in the middle of nowhere and you weren't motivated to the next place.
No, I mean, I just felt okay. I didn't feel vulnerable. And yes, it is touristy, but it's such a peaceful place when compared with many tourist places. Yeah, it's not an issue for me. Andrew?
When you have your encounters with people on the road, did you reveal your calling?
Yeah, good question. Did I reveal my calling to people I sat and chatted with? I remember I spoke with I had dinner with a couple at that high mountaintop place called Ochibrero, and I did to them, but I think that's probably the only time I did. What did I get out of it? I had some amazing experiences. I love the world, the beautiful world that God's made. I love sort of the morphology and landscape that you can see and how varied it is. So a sort of celebration and the joy of celebration and sort of, I wouldn't go so far as re-engaging with God and myself, but it got rid of some of the noise that distracts us. Yeah. So I think it was you said for everybody else, you talked about thinking back over my life and coming to terms with what I've experienced. Do we ever come to terms with the disasters and the tragedies and the sorrows of life? I think they embed within you and God shapes you through them. But what I'm talking about the whole experience, not just the cycle right now, because we've talked a lot about Rachel. And I think what the 3 months did was it sort of made me say, you've got a lovely new life now, and this was the right church for me because you loved me when I needed to be loved, and you've got a lovely new relationship with Lucy, but I think what it was doing without any sort of compromise of all that is new, it was saying, don't just leave the past behind. Let it shape your future and let it shape you. And I hope that's a message for all of us. Juliet?
You talked about Lazarus and how you couldn't understand what Jesus said to you. What about being able to believe God for what's happened to you?
I'll start with the less important one. It wasn't that I couldn't understand, it was just I wish he hadn't, because life's not like that. I don't think I've ever been angry enough with God to need to forgive him, actually. I don't know why. Because I think we travelled through 4 years together, and bless her, Rachel, who furiously didn't want to die, she also had a much more profound experience of God's blessing in the suffering than I ever had. And, that was quite, I humbly look at that and say, wow. And it reminds me it's not all about me. And if she can rejoice in God when everything's been taken away, then what right have I not to? Let's have a quick look. Oh, someone mentioned the Oaks of Mamre. Shall I find the picture, just to remind you? Day one, I left the large city of Leon, which is actually higher than Dartmoor, but it was hot and sunny, and I climbed along this gentle plain with stubble in fields on either side of me, and there in the middle of nowhere was this little place where, well, there's the picture. That on the right is a huge table with pastries and fruit and delightful things. And the little kiosk at the back is drinks of all sorts. And looking out across in the field behind the kiosk, there was a double bed. There was also a dining table with chairs round the table. It was bizarre and lovely. And people just helped themselves. And you could go round the back, and there were more bed spaces under the stars, and there were armchairs. And there weren't many people there, but I eventually worked out who ran it, and he was a sort of an aging hippie who definitely needed a bath. And he said, well, it's a gift. It's my gift to all travellers. You help yourself to whatever you want. I said, can I pay? You don't have to pay. I think that's what he said. Eventually I found there was a little bowl with money in it. And I'd landed the day before with no euros at all. I found €5, or did I find 10? Anyway, I gave him all my euros. But it was that business of generous hospitality that spoke powerfully to me. If you know the Old Testament story where Abraham is in his, maybe his Bedouin tent, whatever it is, and he sees 3 strangers, and he rushes out to them and he offers hospitality to them. That takes place at the Oaks of Mamre. And this just felt like that. No one said to me, as they said to Abraham, in a year's time your wife will have a baby. But I think there was something of the heart of God and the quality of hospitality about that place, and to encounter it on day one, it sort of set the tone for everything. If you know Rublev's icon, the famous icon, that's a depiction of the Opus of Mamre, where the three visitors are at a table, and they're interpreted as the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Spirit. And Abraham brings out bread and wine as well, which doesn't get connected with Eucharist in the way you might expect it to be. I'm quite happy to wind up, because I want you to go home before you fall asleep. Paul? Yeah. How many meters climbed? If you go to my blog, because my tracker on my phone, at the end of every ride, it told me how much I climbed. It was a heck of a lot. It really was. I think there was one day when I climbed 4,000 feet. So that's over 1,000 meters. So yeah, you can add it up. And most of the some of the paths were really hard. Some were wide and open, like what you see now. I can't ask you, but you can work it out. Is there any wine and tapas left? Well, thank you for indulging me. If you want to take any of these books, please do. If you just tell me what you've taken, so I can come and hand you down to have it returned. If something's gone or you'd like to, then just write on the list and I'll get it for you. Oh, thank you. Sorry? It is lovely to be back. Yeah. It was hard enough to negotiate that one. Sorry? Yes, Peter, you're welcome on the next one. Oh, yeah, let's finish with that. Sorry.
The only question I had, Mike, have you reported your carbon footprint to the diocese?
Peter says, have I reported my carbon footprint to the diocese? I'm feeling deeply guilty about it. And sorry, this is the final reading. This prayer is the Pilgrim's Prayer, and I first encountered it in the church on that high village called Ochibrero. It's brilliant. So let's have it as a concluding activity. And I'm so sorry, I nearly forgot you.
Although I may have travelled all the roads, crossed mountains and valleys from east to west, if I have not discovered the freedom to be myself, I have arrived nowhere. Although I may have shared all my possessions with people of other languages and cultures, made friends with pilgrims of 1,000 paths, or shared albergues with saints and princesses, if I am not capable of forgiving my neighbour tomorrow, I have arrived nowhere. Although I may have carried my pack from beginning to end and waited for every pilgrim in need of encouragement, or given my bed to one who arrived later than I, given my bottle of water in exchange for nothing, if upon returning to my home and work, I am not able to create brotherhood or make happiness, peace, and unity, I have arrived nowhere. Although I may have food and water each day and enjoyed a roof and shower every night, or may have had my injuries well attended, if I have not discovered in all that the love of God, I have arrived nowhere. Although I may have seen all the monuments and contemplated the best sunsets, although I may have learned a greeting in every language or tried the clean water from every fountain, If I have not discovered who is the author of so much free beauty and so much peace, I have arrived nowhere. If from today I do not continue walking on my path, searching far and living according to what I have learned, if from today I do not see in every person, friend or foe, a companion on the Camino, if from today I cannot recognize God, the God of Jesus of Nazareth, as the one God of my life, I have arrived nowhere.